Let's go, let's go, let's go. Alright, people wanna hate every day, it's okay.
All right, welcome back, Reckless Success. Tonight we have my beautiful wife, Lesa.
Hello.
Everybody loves Lesa. And just try to catch you guys up. We've been super busy, so we've missed an episode or so through here.
Yeah. Sorry for the delays.
But we're in that phase of doing the jobs we talked about getting. So luckily, and also before we start, I want to throw a shout out to our babysitter, Maddie. Maddie is our producer for tonight because we were a little shy, but she's doing a good job.
Yeah. Madeline's been our sitter for our youngest son for years now, and she's like part of our family. And I needed someone to record last minute. Usually Luke does when it's Jesse and I. And I was like, you want to come record a podcast because Jesse's in town, because that's why he's been out of town for work. So that's why we've had a hard time recording, is because Jesse's not even been home. So that makes it kind of difficult to create the episodes.
Right. But before we start all that, me and Lisa were talking the other day about my stepdad, who I don't know, he has said he wants to be on here, but surely he won't mind. But so my stepdad growing up was like my dad also. I mean, he raised me from the time I was two.
Baby, yeah.
But boy, did I give him a hard time.
Yeah.
Like I called him
You were like the problem child.
I was the problem child.
Like the movie.
I would call him Hot Rod because that movie that came out, Hot Rod.
I don't know that movie.
We'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
There was a movie called Hot Rod, and I just started fucking with Jerry when I was like 14. I'd be like, all right, Hot Rod, because he's always wound up.
Yeah.
He was always pissed off with good reason
Yeah.
because I was so bad.
He was like working, providing for Jesse's mom and his brother and him and their little sister. And then like he's got these two stepsons that are just like
Right.
terrors. So he was angry, I think, for good reason.
Yeah.
He
He would
did.
literally come down like my bedroom was in the basement. So he would shower downstairs in the basement. And at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, when he went to work, he would come into the bathroom. I'd be asleep, and it would sound like he's in there just fighting somebody.
Fighting for his life.
Fighting for his life. Like the towel rack, the little shelf would be all like thrown over. And he would just be like, God damn, some bitches, fucking lazy motherfuckers. I could hear him from my
Because you
bedroom.
and your brother both had
Yeah.
basement
I'm like
bedrooms.
19, my brother's probably 24, you know?
Living down there.
Yeah, we're like step brothers, the
Yeah.
movie. So he always had a rough time with us. One time, my punishment or like my fee to live there or whatever would be I'd have to help him clean his barn. So all day we spend cleaning this shop up, get it all nice and fixed. And that night I had me, my buddy Bean that got killed,
Mhm.
and Kentucky, my other buddy Kentucky over. And they were both older. I'm like 20 or something, and these dudes are like 30s. And here I am. Me and Kentucky are working on my four-wheeler on this stand that we'd built with like a hammer. We're all geeked out. So we're like, I'm not even using the right tools. I'm
Right.
like trying to take the motor apart with a hammer or something. And then Bean's over on this side of the barn with like a welder over by Jerry's shit. It was probably Jerry's welder. And I remember it's like 1 a.m. and we're just out there making all kinds of noise. We're doing drugs.
Ugh.
And all of a sudden that side door opens. And my stepdad was so good at fucking making you feel like, damn, this dude's pissed.
Yeah.
He opened that door and he was
Scary.
like, he just got all red and his head built up. And he was like, young man, I got three young men on my shit list. And these dudes are like 5 years younger than him.
Older. Oh, younger than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I got 3 young men on my shit list. I remember I'd be like, oh shit, time to go, guys. So we like started our four-wheelers and ride off
Burn out
into the
past
dark.
him.
Yeah.
I just don't know how, like, as even though he was your step parent and more like a real parent because he raised you so long,
Right.
like how he put up with that. I would have made
don't
you guys
know.
get out. Like, even with our kids, I say that, and I know you don't know till you've been through it, but I cannot imagine us both working all day to provide this nice home and then coming home and our sons are just kicking it
Hanging
in our
out.
house, like terrorizing us, like not working on drugs. I can't imagine. He was a nice guy to not just kick you guys out when you turned 18.
He had so he'd always sit out on the front porch swing and smoke cigars
Yeah.
after work. And I had these cameras. So I live in the basement. I had these cameras with a cord. and I had him run out the basement window down the side of the
Like
house.
your own security system for your little
Yeah,
basement.
my own security, but they had a cord. This was before like
Mm-hmm.
wireless cameras. So it went to the flower pot where my mom had her flowers on the porch. And then I took the back of an RC car apart, I took the steering off of an RC car and I put the camera on it so I could turn it. And I remember like I would be all geeked out staring at my little TV that had a camera on it. And he would be sitting there smoking a cigar and I'd be like turning it and I'd hear him, motherfucker. He'd
You
like
could hear it
yeah, he'd
turn.
like kick the flower pot over and I'd have to go turn it back up.
And you put in an intercom system with like a doorbell to
Yeah.
the basement. Like this is his parents' house.
Yes.
I remember when Jesse installed an intercom. So you walk in their garage, like that's kind of like the main entrance, like a lot of houses with a side garage. So you walk in their garage and then it's like you either go upstairs to their regular house or downstairs to the basement. And Jesse installed an intercom system so people would come over to his parents' house and they'd have to like buzz in and he'd be
Yeah.
like, "Who's there?" Like, and it wasn't even your house.
No. But my mom would always be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea." She's like, "What do you got this for?" And I'm like, I didn't tell her it was for selling drugs or whatever I was doing at
Oh
the time.
God.
I just told her, I was like, "Oh, well, that way when," I'd always blame stuff on Lisa because they love Lisa. That way when Lisa comes over, she can just let me know she's here. And she'd be like, "That's good thinking. Such a chip off the old block."
Yeah.
So those are a couple. I think I told the story about when they came home and we had the party, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you may have too.
One night I had a bunch of people over. Big Pete was one of them. Our friend we call Big Pete because his name was Pete and he was big. So it was Lisa, me, probably like what, 3 or 4 other guys in my
I
bedroom
guess.
downstairs, which was right below my parents'
Which is like a
bedroom.
little bedroom.
And Lisa would come over and stay late, but we
I
wouldn't
had
make a
a
lot of
curfew.
noise. Yeah, you had a curfew.
Yeah, I'd be out of there. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
And I would
And remind you,
just
this is
hang
like
out.
a Wednesday. So my stepdad's got to work in the morning. It's just always a random day. And I've got all these people in my room. And Big Pete's just talking and getting louder. And I'm like, "Big Pete, keep it down." And then he keeps talking and getting louder. And all of a sudden, it sounds like my stepdad body slams my mom on the floor. Like you just hear this boom
Stomps.
right
Yeah.
above us. And then you hear him like stomping through the house. He comes down. I remember when he banged on the door, like the whole wall was moving.
Yeah.
And I like crack open the door just a little bit and I stick my head out. And there's like all these people and all this smoke in here from whatever. And I crack the door open and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "God damn, making all this damn noise in my house." And I was like, "Oh, it was just Lisa." I said, "Lisa got loud. I'm sorry." And he was like, "Oh, tell her to keep it down."
And he laughed.
Gosh, and he
He walked
laughed.
off. Poor
Yes.
Jerry.
Oh, and the last poor Jerry story I've got is one time I had this red S10 SS. I had my Raptor in the back of it, and I took a propane tank that I had planned to use for bad things, and I slid the propane tank under my four-wheeler. I lifted it up and slid the tank under it.
Okay.
I go to their driveway. Well, when I slid it under there, somehow I'd hit something on the valve and broke it. So I dropped my truck off at their house with just a propane tank, even though I was going to use it later for bad
But at the
things.
time, it wasn't like anything bad.
At the time, it was just propane. And I leave my truck. Well, my stepdad calls me at like 5 in the morning, and he's like, madder than hell. I knew when I saw his phone ring, my phone ringing, and it's him at 5 in the morning. I'm like, "God, what's he want?" So I answer, and he's like, "You got the whole damn neighborhood smelling like meth." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "That damn, you got a tank in the back of your truck leaking."
Oh my God.
He's like, "You get that shit off my property." And I'm like, "Oh." So I'm like down the road a few blocks.
Partying.
Yeah, just partying at 5 in the morning. So I had this guy that didn't have a license like drive me up. And the way my parents was set up was they had a barn and then storage units behind that. So I'd always get dropped off behind the storage units and like sneak up, right? And that's what I done. So I run up, jump in my truck, take off. I don't want to see my stepdad. I know he's madder than hell. So I take off. I take off my little truck and I go out to this property outside of town. I had no clue whose it was. I'm just trying to get rid of this propane tank. So I pull into a field. I go back by the wood line in my truck at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I get out, I throw the tank out. As I come back up to the road and I'm coming out of a grassy field, here comes my stepdad's work truck. And he had like a big dump truck and a Traco, you know. and he's coming up the road, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think this dude would catch me twice in the same morning. So
Right.
I remember I pulled out in front of him. I didn't have a tailgate on my truck, so I couldn't like take off too
Oh
fast because
my
my four-wheeler is
God.
just like sitting over the fender well. So I'm like trying to speed up, like go, go.
He'd be like running off the road.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Pissed.
what it felt like. It felt like one of
Oh,
those movies where like the big
like,
dump trucks like
yeah,
gonna
right on
get
your
you.
tail.
Yeah,
Remember
so
that time that your one friend, you'll know who it is when I start telling the story, we're gonna call him Tim. We were hanging out at your house, at your parents' house, and this guy Tim, who looked rough, like he looked like a tweaker. He all of a
shows
sudden,
up in a
I feel
tweaker
like he's on
car.
the intercom, like Jesse,
Yeah.
Jesse, it's me, Tim. I need to come in. And you're like,
Yeah,
what's Tim
Tim never
showing
comes
up? Yeah,
over.
why is he
He
showing up
looks
at
so
my mom's
bad.
house?
Tim's never at my house.
So Tim comes downstairs. He's like, "Oh man," he's like pacing around. He's like, "I just got in a hit and run, man. I got in a hit and run. I left, man. I hit some car. It wasn't
Yeah,
like a bad. It was like a fender bender. He said it was at a stoplight. It wasn't like a big wreck. But he was like, "Man, I hit
I
this
need to
car
hide.
and I had to flee because I don't have my license and this car's not insured." And yeah, it was like every crime in the book. He's like, "I gotta hide out here for a minute." And mind you, we're at Jesse's parents, and I'm
Right.
freaking out because I'm not a criminal, and I'm like, "What? Like this is bad, bad." And so the guy hangs out for like an hour.
We put his car in their barn.
Yeah.
I went and opened the door and put his car in the
Your
barn.
poor
Remember, he
parents.
sat there. It was like an hour later. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna go." And then he started the car and just sat there like revving it up
Revving it up
in my parents'
for
barn.
like 30 minutes. He kept like, okay, I really got to go. I
He was
got to
all
get out
geeked
of
out.
here. And he'd start, but like for some reason, he was not putting it in drive. He was keeping it in neutral and revving the
Yeah.
engine over and over like he was just going to peel out. But he would never put it in drive. And I was like, dude, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And like people are going to get suspicious because his car is sitting here revving their engine over and over again. It was so, and then he finally left it. It was so funny. It was one of my like first experiences with this Tim guy, and I'm like, what just happened?
Who
Like
is that
a
guy?
hit
That
and
was like one of
run
my
and
hidden friends that I would
like a
hide.
hidden friend, yeah. And I just remember him revving that damn car. It was like an old Thunderbird.
That same guy, what were we calling him, Tim?
Tim.
That same guy, he was only like 19 or 20, and I was in a hotel room with him and his old lady, and he went in the bathroom, and I could see him in the bathroom with a pair of pliers, and he was pulling teeth out of his head.
Oh my
I was like,
God.
"What are you doing?" He's like, I got a toothache. I don't got no dentist." And he was in there pulling, his mouth was all bloody
Oh
and
my
shit. I was like, "I
God.
gotta go. This is too much for me. We're having too good of a time here,
That's
guys."
like some scary side of drug use right there. That's like disgusting and
Well,
terrifying.
one thing though, so when we were all strung out, Tim had the worst teeth, right? Like
Yeah.
they're all rotten out. And whenever I was going away, I saw Tim in federal court because he was like coming for court. And he looked at me and he smiled, and it was like one of those cartoons where like the cat's got a brand new mouth,
Shut
you
up.
know?
Perfect
And
teeth.
like Tim had perfect teeth. And I was like, "Damn, Tim, where'd you get them teeth at?" And he's like, "When I went to the feds," he's like, "they pulled
They
out all my
fixed
old,
his
yeah, they
teeth. They
fixed
were
his teeth."
rotten.
hmm
That's crazy.
So now Tim's got new nap.
Well, good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully he
He's
changed
still
his
going though.
ways.
No, he
Oh
hasn't. He's still
man.
going hard.
Oh man.
Oh, poor Tim.
Poor
But
Tim.
another buddy, speaking of, I've talked about Cyclops in the past on the podcast.
hmm
My one-eyed friend that I used to be a partner with, and he's been in rehab for 6 months. So he's back. He's getting out, I think, today or yesterday.
Yeah.
So hopefully Josh has a good run at
Stay on
staying
the straight and
sober.
narrow. It's
Right.
not easy, but like we've talked about, it's definitely choices. It's a choice and it's not like an easy one, especially for drug addicts. But I think if people could just live a normal life, like outside of rehab and stuff,
Right.
for a little while, and I probably sound dumb saying this because I never dealt with the things that, you have dealt with, but I really do feel like life's so much better. Like
Right.
it's just so much better if you can just stick to it for a little while and see like how wonderful every day can be when you're sober.
Right. My buddy Cyclops, he's been doing this for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long run.
Yeah.
So
And he's a
hopefully,
really nice
and he's a
guy,
really
like
smart guy,
good-hearted,
and he's
smart,
smart. And I was thinking
not a
about this
skis.
the other day. I guess he just messaged me. He like we were talking, and then he just went MIA for a long
hmm
time, for 6 months, and now he's back on, probably, which is a good thing. He probably got rid of his phone or whatnot and
Yeah.
Facebook. So I was thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking, man, when me and him were doing bad things together, we were like figuring it out on our own, and we came up with like a good way to do it. And I was
Right.
thinking, if he would just get the right mindset to helping me do this, I could probably utilize him as a boss if he got snapped off of the drugs. Like
If
he
you
was
could
that
stay
smart.
sober, right.
Like he was always forward thinking.
hmm
You know what I mean? He was figuring things out that were issues, and that's all he's got to do is switch it from the drug world to the real world, It's the same thing.
I think on your and Philip's episode, Philip said that, like something about don't let an addict get addicted to work, or like see what they can do if you
Right.
can focus on something good like a career or a job or your own business, like,
Yeah.
and become addicted to that, like they'll make some money. Like
Yeah.
you're not
It's just like going to prison. Like I would like to hire prisoners coming out because I know that they've been sitting there just wanting to work,
wanting to do
sitting in a little
something.
cell, like, and
Yeah.
everyone that I know that's got out of prison that hasn't went back to drugs, I keep coughing again. Everyone I know getting out of prison that didn't go right back to drugs is a hell of a worker.
They
Like the
went straight to
tire shop
working.
guy, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
once they get addicted to work, then they just switch their addiction. So,
And Chris said that in the last episode too, that he was just working 12-hour shifts at a factory, which wasn't his goal, like the end
right.
goal for him, but he needed to just be working out and working overnight, sleep during the day, gym, go back to work, and like stay on that path to make sure you can handle it, you
The
know?
main thing is just getting the money coming without spending it on
Stupid
drugs.
stuff, yeah.
Like but I think it's as long as they're not getting cheap checks for like $300-$400. If they're getting checks for a couple thousand, you realize like, damn, if I stay on this path,
Right.
I'll be able to do some things. You know what I mean? So it does help to try to find one of them blue collar jobs.
Yeah. Even
'Cause that's what they
factory
pay.
jobs, because if you're working long hours, even though that sucks, but you got those big checks, it really does pay off. Like it feels good to get your bank account set up and then start building credit like we've talked about, and just establishing yourself and like being able to buy your own car and get your own place. You've got to
Right.
have money. So you need to be working nonstop. Like you don't need weekends off. We
Right.
don't have weekends off most of the time still, you know. People think that they need like these luxuries of time, which obviously you do want that eventually, but like especially right out of prison or when you're young, I feel like you need to work as much as possible, get as much money in the bank as possible
Yeah, I would like to one
to be
day start a
successful.
program where we could hire prisoners.
Yeah, we
That'd
probably
be
could do
sweet.
that.
Because that'd be a group of good guys that are healthy, they're in shape.
As long as they got their mind right there, because I do feel like some people that have been in prison that we know come out and they're ready to just be dirtbags again.
Right.
Like they did
Well, I
not
mean, you'd
grow.
have to vet them.
They
You
did
can tell pretty
not.
quick.
Yeah, that's true.
A few weeks, like give them a 3-week probation.
Right. You've got to
You
be
can usually
willing
tell.
and ready to change your
Yeah.
life and make a better choice.
It's like, oh, and sorry for the coughs. This is going to be a lot of coughs in this episode. It's cold here in Southern Illinois as well as up north where I've been working.
Dry.
So dry, but we're recording this on Sunday and posting it on Sunday. So it's just going to have some coughs in it.
Yeah. We're trying to get this out because I guess we can switch gears to talk about the work stuff.
Right.
So we got kind of behind on the podcast because we had bid a bunch of work, which is normally you're always bidding jobs and you never know what you're going to win, of course. And we ended up winning 4 jobs, but like they can take anywhere from like several weeks to several months to actually start. So it's a pretty crazy, it's just crazy because you're like, you know, you have this work coming, but you have to wait on paperwork and fill out all this stuff and send stuff back and forth. And then all 4 of our jobs that we got like had to start the same week, which was the beginning of November. And
Right.
talk
Once you get a
about
notice to
crazy.
proceed, once you have the notice to proceed, you've got what, 10 days,
Depends on the
15
job,
days?
but usually like 10 to 15 days to start.
And we were working with like the same government
Agency.
So it almost seemed like the jobs they released, they like released them all at once.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, we got 2, 3, because the one over here at the
Uh-huh.
sinkholes, that's 3 of them were like right at the same time.
So it was like a lot, and there's a lot of paperwork, that planning, getting supplies together, figuring out who's going where, renting equipment, getting prices. Like usually you have project managers and that's all they do is all of that. But we have people that were like training into those positions, but maybe don't know how to do all that super
Right.
efficiently yet. And Jesse and I are both good at that because we've been doing it on our own all these years.
But we're also learning too.
But we're learning a lot of new stuff too. So it was nuts. I'd say almost the whole month of November, like we both worked normal all day long. Our kids would have to come to our office and sit there for a few hours because I just had too much work to come home.
October was busy like that.
October too. And then I would like make dinner and then straight back to work. And like we always work a lot, but it was like beyond. It was crazy working that much and that late, like every single day of the week, every Saturday, every Sunday, like
Like all these meetings.
paperwork, like office work.
Right.
Yeah.
And we should talk about doing like, because we could narrow down. We done it the hard way. We done it with no help. Like
Yeah.
each step we're Googling or how do we do this? And we're calling the offices, we're getting a hold of people.
Calling people we know in the industry that are way more advanced than us. They were helpful. You have to
Right.
use your people. Like, you can't be your grandpa on that little note he left you
Mhm.
said, like, don't be afraid to ask questions or something like that.
Right.
Don't be a know-it-all. And that is so important because you can't be afraid to ask people that have done this longer or know more. Like, you called a couple different, even excavation contractors, like we've talked about that.
Right.
We get along with them and like, hey man, what does this
What's
even
this mean?
mean? Or what's
Right.
this process? Because I'm like, I don't want to sound stupid to the state, but I don't even know what they're talking about. Like,
Right.
and he helped you, and he's like, oh, they just mean this and that. They're, and you can't be afraid to ask people for guidance and help in their opinion on stuff because we utilize a lot. Even like I can't do Microsoft Excel very well at all, unfortunately. And so I reached out and asked for people that know how to do it to help me build these charts we need to like manage these projects. You just have to use your resources.
Right. But I think we could narrow down thousands of hours of research that we done to
Mhm.
get to this point into like segments where we could teach people
Yeah.
like, hey, we could save you 200 hours
Yeah.
of research that it took us to
Time.
get to this point. So maybe in the future we could do some,
Like a
segments.
manual, a step by step. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, because that would have been helpful. It was a lot to learn, and we're still learning. I mean, we learned what we learned, but
Right. So now that
every
we've
day.
busted into this federal state job situation, now we got the Trump thing going on, which Trump's our president now. So, but they're also talking about cutting a lot of stuff. So we think it's gonna be good, but it's also
It's
like,
like the unknown because you
right,
don't know what will happen. Like even the state of Illinois, at one of the jobs we were at, a bid, the state of Illinois employee was saying that they got an email that morning that said they're only doing emergency projects through the end of their fiscal year, which is June. So like that, like they're cutting back on all their funding for construction type work
right.
because they're worried about what kind of funds they're
Yeah,
going to be getting.
nobody's gonna spend any money for a minute
So
because they know they're all about to
that's
get
interesting. And that's, well, so I mean, that's just any kind of business. I think there's always ebb and flow, and there's
right.
changes that you can't predict, like with the economy, with people, and just anything. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but I'm not really fearful. I'm not
No, I
worried.
think we've got a real good residential market, and
Yeah.
now the jobs we've completed. So I went up north. I done that project. It's got maybe 3 days left on it. I wish it would have started sooner because right when we started it, it was so dry. All these ponds
Yeah.
were dry. And we were building water control structures off of a canal to fill these ponds at a state park, and it was so dry. And then right when we got there, the rain started.
Like
We're
every
up by
other day
Chicago,
rain.
every other day rain. And then last Wednesday it was snowing sideways. Like I'm up there trying to get this job
Yeah.
finished and it's snowing sideways. But it's just a challenge. We got it done on time ahead of schedule. But if it would have stayed dry, I would have been way ahead of
Yeah,
schedule.
that would have been nice.
And then I started waking up every morning. I could hear the cars outside going by and like the water on their tires.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm out of town. But we pushed through. We persevered.
Yeah.
We got that one done. We done another DNR project that was for a culvert replacement, a big culvert
Mhm.
with flared in sections. We're doing the trail that we got, the 6.2 miles of walking path around Cedar Lake and Carbondale.
Mhm.
And then we're also a sub for a big job that's doing 39 sinkholes right
Yeah.
down the road. So we have a lot going on right now.
Which
We
is
went from,
good.
yeah,
It's like the goal, but it is insane. And going back to what we've talked about, like not blowing all your money when you do start making money with business and like reinvesting it, we have really held on to a lot of our money the last few years and kept it in our accounts and not just blown it and taken it out and bought all new everything, new trucks, new toys. Like we bought some new stuff, but not like foolishly. And if we hadn't done that, we could not have done these jobs because it costs so much money to start these jobs, to buy all the supplies, to do your payroll every week. I mean, just the housing, Airbnbs, hotels, and you don't get paid for so long after you complete them. And thank God we held on to our money. And like it really is so important to never feel like you can never have enough money in the bank, which okay, you shouldn't. I feel like in not necessarily in the bank, but even like in investments, somewhere you can pull it out of.
right.
Not necessarily like 401ks or like, which I guess you can pull out loans from there, but we didn't do that. But whether it's an investment account or a savings or checking out, somewhere where you have access to the funds
Hmm.
in a decent amount of time, I feel like is so important rather than just being like, oh, we're gonna go big time and buy all this stupid
Right.
crap and not have cash
I
flow.
feel like that comes back to one of our mentors, 06,
Hmm.
told us a long time ago, a few years ago. He said to do this commercial stuff, you have to have capital.
Mm-hmm.
It takes capital. So it's been in my head since he
Yeah.
said that. Like, I mean, we've been saving, but we've also been investing, like she said, and we waited to a point to jump into this market when we had the capital to get started. But boy, is it scary.
It is scary. It's a lot, and
It's a
it's
few years worth of
whew.
work, but it's going to work out and it's going to be good. That job we finished, my brother's job's finished. Now we're just waiting on payment from the state. Engineers were great. The projects went good.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily with these jobs, they're like engineered specs. So each step, you take a picture, you know, if you got to have, they'll come out and do compaction test, and then it's all on paper. And it's like,
Right.
it's pretty go down the line. As long as you follow the steps that they want,
Yeah.
it's okay to, like, I don't know, I was just nervous about it. But once we figured it out, it wasn't as bad as I was thinking.
And I think that's it. It's like you with residential, you kind of just start the job
It's
and
all in my
and
head.
yeah, and you finish the job and it's in Jesse's head and that's it. But like you have to actually explain to all these people what your steps are, when you're doing them, have them come check, okay, we've completed that one. We want to look at
Right.
it first. Don't move forward. You know, so
Right.
it's just a different
Trying to
process.
schedule all that stuff.
Scheduling
Like,
everything, yeah.
you'll have these union guys, which are not, they're not cheap. Like,
No,
we're paying 100 an hour or close to it on these guys.
crazy.
And then if you hit a spot where you're like, damn, now I got to wait for this company to come out and compaction test, you can't just send these guys
Yeah, you
home.
still gotta pay
So
them.
you're paying them.
Chill.
So it's like, I'm trying to, you know, play that chess game of having everything lined up. It went smooth.
You did a good
We
job.
found some great resources, like the dumpster guy was a big help.
Yeah. And that too, like we were working out of town, so we don't have all of our normal like suppliers and resources and people that we use. And it's so important, I think, when you like to call around. So like I found, you know, dirt in one town, but I'm like, let me call and get pricing from this other dirt company. And we
It's
went with
half the
them. It was
price.
half the price, and they ended up being the nicest, which I don't know, the other company probably was nice too, but helpful. Like we
Right.
couldn't find straw blanket because the season it's like out. So the guys called me, of course, I'm like a master of researching. I can find anything anywhere, which I don't really have time for, but I'm like obviously gonna make time for that. And I'm glad they called. But I'm like, I called one place, they didn't have it. I'm like, wait a second, I'm calling the lady I've talked to at the dirt place because I bet she knows who has, you know what I mean? And I
Right.
did. And then right when I told David, I was like, hey, I talked to so and so. Or I know I found that company. I left the lady a message and she hadn't got back to me. And I found this company. It was like an hour away. I'm like, they have it. He said, I actually just thought to call Kim and she recommended the same company. I'm like,
Right.
I'm so glad you thought to do that because that's exactly how that goes. Like, that's the thought process you should be having. But he figured it out before I
Right.
even, you know what I mean? Like, but it's using your people. Like, people in the industry in each area know all the other people
Right.
usually. So
Like
use
the
your
guy that
resources.
came, which when I go back up there, I need to take him to dinner. We had a Traco moved up there, and typically it was actually a sub for us because you have to have the DBE percentage.
Yeah, which we're going to get soon, but we don't have it yet.
Right. So we had to have a sub to get our minority percentage as well. And when his Traco was getting delivered, the driver, who typically the drivers can load and unload tractors and they're fine, he calls me and he's like, hey, I got this Traco here for delivery and they're 4.5 hours away. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, is somebody here to unload it? And I'm like,
Oh my
you can't
God.
unload it? And he's like, I've never started one of these or anything. And I'm like, buddy, it ain't that hard. I was like, you're on a low boy? Yeah. I was like, I'll talk you through it. No, I can't do it.
Ah,
I'm like, well, we're 4.5 hours away. I was like, let me think about this. So I'm calling the owner of the Traco and he wasn't answering at the time. So I'm like, how am I going to get this track off? And I started calling excavating companies in the town we were working. And I got a hold of this super nice company. And I'm like, it was raining. And I'm like, hey, I've got a Traco on a lowboy at a state park up there. And the driver won't unload it. I was like, can I Venmo you some money to run out there and unload it? And this guy's like, you don't have to Venmo me no money. He's like, I'll go unload it for you. Took time out of his day.
so nice.
So
Some
nice.
random, like we're some random contractor from out of town.
From out of town. And this guy went out there, spur of the moment, met, unloaded the Traco, and I've never met him or talked to him
You
since.
definitely need to get with him before you
He wouldn't
finish.
send me his Venmo, so I need to
Aw.
call him while I'm there and,
Yeah.
you know, do
But that's
something.
like some nice people. And that's it. Like literally you
Ooh,
can't be
greeting
afraid to,
cards. I know their name. We should at least send them a
Send 'em.
basket.
yeah, something.
That'd be a
We
good
will.
idea. Okay.
Remind me after the episode.
All right.
Put it in my Google Calendar
We'll
'cause I'll
send them a
forget.
basket.
But no, that's it. Like you can't be afraid to call people and ask for help and
Right.
say like, hey, like that's not people I think are afraid to just like pick up the phone. But you don't even if you get a jerk sometimes, you're also gonna get nice people. Like you never
I'm
know
one of
who's
those
gonna
people.
answer.
I mean, I'll talk on the phone and I'll call, but
Mm.
whenever it's my turn to call somebody, I'm like, oh, I wish Lesa would do it. She's
Yeah,
so
I
good at
know. I'm
this.
always like, did you call so and so to follow up on that? He's like, I'm like, do it right now today.
I'm like working, stuff's beeping. It never,
Sometimes you're the one that has to make the call though for
yeah,
random reasons.
I
So
do. And that's another thing,
I can
like
only pretend to be
doing,
you so much. On the phone, I can't pull it off in
right,
email and stuff.
doing these jobs, like each job's got a meeting you got to go to, whether it be Zoom or pre-construction,
Hmm.
and there's like all this stuff. So like we're trying to keep track of multiple different jobs, payrolls, and it's still just Lisa, me, and Melissa in the
Yeah,
office, and I'm not in the office, so it's really just Lisa and Melissa in the
I'm
office
definitely doing
trying to keep
about
track of.
5 different people's jobs, but that's okay. I'm
We
not even
had
complaining.
last week we had 14 people on our payroll from like two or
Yeah,
three like six
yeah.
months ago. So
It's a lot, but I know like once like we just started doing these jobs and I know in the next like 6 months as we continue getting these big jobs, we'll just have to hire someone to do that kind of stuff for me. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Like I can handle it. It's a lot of hours and a lot of time and I'm like stressed out,
but it's
but
good that you know the stuff so that way if somebody else is running it, we can always cut them out if they need to be cut out, and then you can pick back up.
right. And I think that I need to have someone as a backup because I think all the time, like, what if something happened to me today? What if I got super sick or in a
Right.
wreck? Who's doing payroll? Like stuff like that, which I think our accountant could probably fill in,
I don't know how to pay one single bill of ours. I couldn't pay our house
That's
payment.
not good.
I don't know what our water, I don't even know what a water bill looks like. Like, how do you know? I have no
I
clue.
know. That's one of our faults. I feel, you know what?
I haven't opened a piece of mail
I
in like
actually
10
have,
years.
I made a list in the past year that's in our safe, and one of my sisters has a copy of this list too in an envelope that says for emergencies only. And it actually has, as of that moment, all of our bank accounts and loan accounts,
That's
who's the
good.
electric company, who's the water company, like just the basics that you could at least get stuff paid and know who to call. Because I thought that I thought he wouldn't even know like
No.
anything. But luckily, we primarily use one bank for Southern here because they've been so good to us. We talked about our banker Josh, and he's phenomenal and very good at his job. So I feel like I think I have on there like call our
Call
accountant and
Josh.
call Josh. I do. I think I have their numbers. I'm like, call them. And
Right.
if something happened, like they'd at least be able to manage you to the point of like something so we don't like go into default on stuff.
I'd be like that Garth Brooks song, The Beach or whatever.
I
I'd
don't
just
know.
walk off into the ocean
I
if something
know,
ever
you're
happened to
right.
you.
Don't say that.
It'd be over.
But
I'd
that
walk
stuff,
off into the Big Muddy River and be the Big Muddy Monster from now
you
on.
probably would. That's stuff that's real though, I think, with any marriage or relationship, because I think people forget that that could happen in just your regular bills. So like it's important for if one person's the primary bill payer and managing all the money that like you at least have information of if something happened to you, where do they start? Because
Right.
you would be so screwed.
I would have to like wait till people start showing up wanting money
Right. I mean, it would be a nightmare. And
and
some
have to
stuff is like
explain to them that I
email.
don't know if we have any
And like
money.
some of our bills, like everyone wants like paperless billing now. So a lot of our stuff just comes to my email. Like I put like a list of just so much information for you, but it would definitely be hard, but it'd be better than you not having the list. So
Right.
anyone that's in a relationship or even not, if you're single, like leave it for somebody that would have to step in and take care of your business if something were to happen to you,
Right.
because that could be so bad and it would save a lot of headache. But nothing's going to happen, but it's better to be safe.
It's good to be safe.
Good to be safe.
Stay safe, kids.
But yeah, so anyway, we need to hire more office staff for sure to help with stuff. Payroll and accounting, bookkeeping type stuff will definitely be one of them because that's stuff that people can just do that I don't have to do.
Right.
You know.
There's a lot going on, basically. That's why we are behind an episode. Like Lisa said, it's been daylight to dark. It's not that we
Yeah.
haven't wanted to share, but we were excited to share some of the stuff we've been up to.
Yeah, it is exciting. And we love doing the podcast and it's fun. But especially when Jesse's not home, like on the weekends, we're just trying to hang out with our kids and still catch up on work and stuff. So that's obviously more important.
Little dude got a new four-wheeler.
Yeah.
E-Man got a 50 KFX four-wheeler, and I was thinking, he's not going to like this.
He's a little like not super daring.
Right, but he got on that thing and took off, and I could not believe
I
it. He
know.
rode for like 2 days
He
straight,
loves
just in the
it.
mud.
He loves
He was
it.
going through the mud. We had a big track. My dad
So
was out
cute.
just ripping up on the side by side, and he loves riding, so I'm super stoked about
I'm
that.
excited. I'm a little like nervous. Jesse's a really good off-road vehicle rider, but I also know how dangerous it can be. So I'm like try not to have like worried thoughts, but it is
He's
scary
good.
because he's so little.
I've got to put the camera on his helmet because while I was riding behind him, I could hear him. Like I was following behind him. I could hear him
Talking and
giggling and
laughing.
laughing and talking and saying
He's
stuff.
very cute.
Yes. So maybe we'll get some footage of that one day. That is so funny.
Yeah,
All right, you ready to get back to work?
I think so.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining Reckless Success. We'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, guys. We're going to wrap up. You can follow us on TikTok and YouTube at reckless.success, Instagram at recklesssuccess. We're on Spotify and all major podcast services. Hit that subscribe button, please. For more information on May Excavating, check out our website or TikTok. That's a wrap. Thanks.